It's good they got busted. Carl Knight, thank you for supporting the show. What are your favorite podcasts? Also, are you familiar with Mark Ames? First, I am not familiar with Mark Ames. I'm not sure who that is. Tell us who that is. My favorite podcasts are, I really like Paul Gilmartin's Mental Illness Happy Hour. He does really good work. He's a good friend of mine. He's the guy who plays the Republican Richard Martin. He's been on some of the Jimmy Dore live shows. Mental Illness Happy Hour is really good. He's done really good work with that. He's talked about mental illness openly. He's talked about abuse and all this stuff like that. And he also can kind of keep it funny and stuff. And it's a very safe place. And it's a really excellent resource for people who have had trauma, abuse, depression, whatever. So I recommend that podcast a lot. I like Tinfoil Hat. I've been on that several times with Sam Tripoli. It's very much a conspiracy podcast, so they go deep. They go some crazy conspiracies, but I've been on it a couple times. Ron Placone and I were just on it. That's an interesting podcast. I like, I like TOFOP with Will Anderson, or FOFOP, whatever he's always changing the name. I like what Dave Anthony does with The Dollop. That's a really cool, informative podcast. I've been on WTF, so it's really cool what Mark Maron does. That podcast has been around forever. Mixed Feelings podcast is a cool little podcast that I was on, and they were in the festival, the Los Angeles Podcast Festival last year. That's a cool podcast. Everything's Coming Up podcast is an All Simpson podcast. That's a cool one. So those are some of my favorite podcasts. And of course, my own Comedy Film Nerds and the Political Vigilante podcast. So I take the audio from all of my videos and I just put them together and release it as an audio podcast. It's another great way to support the show. Even if you don't listen, even if you consume my show via YouTube, is just subscribe to it. Subscription numbers and listens and stuff like that help. So listen to Comedy Film Nerds and Political Vigilante podcast. Yeah, good. I'm glad Mental Illness Help Out doesn't make you feel alone. That's the whole point. That's, I think, is like his send-off line or whatever, is you're not alone. Oh, here's some other good podcasts. CJ in Pennsylvania, Moderate Rebels with Max Blumenthal and Ed Norton. Cool. Good to know that. Here we go. Mana Talk with James. Yes. Snork Y2K. Good podcast. Guys with Issues is a good podcast. Yeah, Mental Illness Happy Hour. I can't say enough good things about it. Also, if you watch my documentary, Earbuds, the podcasting documentary, which is available on iTunes and at my website, grahamelwood.com, you can see me interview Paul Gilmartin and there's a bunch of cool podcasts in that documentary that you can check out, which are cool.